Hi friends, it's Natalie here today, and I am going to be creating a card with this super adorable thistle stamp set that was released with the November Studio Calico kits. I've cut a 4x6 piece of cardstock, and this is just a scrap piece of paper, and underneath I am stamping on this foam mouse mat, like an old mat, because that just gives you a really sort of nice crisp image. I've taken two of these sort of leafy type of designs and this kind of stick kind of design and put them one on either side of my clear acrylic block, and I'll show you why I do that in a minute. And I'm just going to stamp with Versamark ink because I want this to be one of these sort of white on white heat embossed designs. And I'm going to alternate between this leaf and this branch, and that's why I've stuck them on either side of my stamp block. Now I find it really hard when I'm doing you know, a whole bunch of Versamark or embossing to just keep on going, because I clearly can't see it, and I do want to make it line up reasonably nicely. So I'm just going to sprinkle on the powder, you know, every so often so that I can see where I'm up to. And as I say, I'm just going to alternate between these, and I'm just stamping a whole row across the bottom, and at the very end is when I'm going to heat emboss it. So there is my whole row along the bottom. Now before I go ahead and actually heat emboss that, I also want to stamp and emboss a couple of other images, and that's these two thistles. They come in two different sizes, which I think is super fun. And I've literally just got a spare piece of cardstock. Clearly this is just a bit of a scrap, and that's okay because what I'm going to do with these is cut them out. Now for these thistle images, I want these to be a little bit more realistic colors, if you like, so I'm going to be embossing the bottom of them in green and the top of them in purple. Now I'm going to go ahead and heat set both of these images. Now, of course, the white on white design is incredibly hard to see. So the way I'm going to bring this to life and really make this stand out is do this good old-fashioned technique of some ink blending. So I've chosen 3 of my Colour Theory inks. These are dye inks, and these are fabulous for blending because they go really sort of smoothly together. And so I've chosen the 2 blues, clear blue and something blue, and some green, Emerald City, just to give just a little bit of extra at the end. So I start off with a lighter color, the lightest blue, which is here I'm using clear blue, and I'm just using an ink blending tool. And this is exactly why I've got my scrap paper down on the behind it, because this is definitely going to be messy. And that's because one of the keys to getting this to look really seamlessly blended is to make sure that when you first put the ink blender onto the cardstock that you actually start off the page and move in. Because if you start sort of in the middle, what you find is that you get sometimes some really clear impressions of the edge of the foam pad, like these little lines. And if you want it to look nice and blended, then you need to start off the page. So I'm not going to color this whole card. I just want to bring it up from the bottom and a little bit on the edges as well. And the color will be darkest at the bottom, and I want it to sort of look like it's, you know, fading upwards. You can see sort of how quick and easy this technique actually can be. Now when I'm happy with this lighter blue, and that's probably going to be about it, then I'm going to take the darker blue, the something blue. I'm not going to worry about changing the ink pad because it's still a blue. And again, because this is a much darker colour, I'm definitely needing to make sure that I start off the page and work my way in. And I'm not going to bring it up as high as the lighter blue. I just want it to be here at the bottom. And see how it's kind of colouring in the white embossed images? Well, don't worry about that, because at the very end, you just need to take a clean and dry cloth, like I use a dry baby wipe, and just wipe over the top of those, and it just takes the excess ink off the top. Now, I definitely don't need as much of that. And then just to finish off and just give it a little bit of extra colour, I'm just going to bring in a little bit of green right at the bottom as well. Just right at the bottom. And this is going to be a little bit more subtle, but it's just about creating sort of depth of colour. So that's it. That's fairly quick. And that's much nicer now, like you can clearly see those rushes or grass down the bottom. Now, literally all that's left is to assemble this card, and I'm going to input the 2 thistles here in this gap, and I'll probably, more than likely, stick these up with some foam tape for some extra dimension. So those are going to go there. And then I just thought I wanted to bring in a little bit of some pattern paper. So taking the November 4x6 paper pad, and there's lots of choices in here that would work really well. And all I want is a little strip down the bottom, because that's just going to hide where, you know, like these ones don't quite sort of hit the ground, so to speak. So I thought about different options. And I think I'm going just to stick with this sort of subtle green grid, but I really love this paper, and that's where I got the idea for the colours for this, the green and the darker blue, and so that might work down the bottom as well. Or the hearts, I really love the hearts. So lots of choices. I'm just going to stick with a tiny little bit of a paper strip down the bottom, and it's all going to be then mounted onto my white card. And just to show you how it's all going to come together, then I think I will more than likely also be scattering a few sequins, because I can't seem to stop doing that these days. Maybe some of these light pink ones, something like that. And that's going to be how my card is going to finish up. I'm not going to put it all together here because I don't have my sewing machine here, and you know that I need to have my sewing machine on all of my projects. So what I'm going to do is stitch this cardstock down to the backing card, pop the strip down the bottom, and then finish off with those sequins. And I'll show you what it all looks like when I'm done.